Welcome to the Wake Up Dad Show. This is episode number 2.
Wake up, Dad!
Are you confused and overwhelmed about your role in all the craziness that is being a dad? Are you struggling to create the life you hope for? Are you looking for other dads to share your struggles and your triumphs? Or do you just need help waking up in the morning? Join your host, Dr. Scott Vatcher, as he explores the amazing and sometimes crazy world of being a dad. This is the Wake Up Dad Show.
Because once kids, you know this, and I'm sure all the listeners on this, once you become a dad, your life gets flipped upside down.
With me today is one of my great friends and awesome dad. Laurence Tham is the co-founder of The Wellness Couch. It's a podcast network hosting 20-plus health and wellness podcast shows, including Wellness Guys and Inside the Champion's Mind, of which he's a co-host. So check out those podcasts, guys. Amazing stuff. He's a powerful speaker and mentor and entrepreneur who focuses on simplifying ideas and strategies that apply to daily life. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of today's podcast. His passion and guidance not only inspires audiences, but gives them tools they need to make massive mental shifts towards creating fulfilling lives. He's dedicated his life to helping people overcome mediocrity and in the pursuit of being world-class in life, love, and legacy. He takes his lessons from his past and present as a husband, father, chiropractor, entrepreneur, running several successful businesses. These lessons have been honed over the last 15 years through mentorships, worldwide travel, study, meeting people from the best quality of life. Others are quickly able to apply his lessons to daily circumstances, thanks down to his own down-to-earth qualities. Easy to follow, practical advice. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Laurence Tham.
Scott, it's great to be on the show, and thanks for having me on. We've been great friends for a long time, and we spent a lot of time together through chiropractic college, and it's been an amazing time to see us both here in Australia. And thanks for the bio too. That's it makes me look better than I actually am.
Always. So tell us a bit about your story about becoming a dad. You know, you got 2 kids now. Give us a little feedback.
Okay, so I guess I've been married. I've known my wife Karen since I was 21 years old. So I'm 41 now, and so we were together for 20 years, which is just half my life. And we got married around 26, 27, I think, and we started having kids for about 33, I think. Yeah, so I have 2 kids. I have 8-year-old Kaya at the moment. At the time of this recording, she just turned 8 last week. And I have Christian, a boy he's 5 years old now. So I got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. It's a fantastic pigeon pair. The reason why I told you the timelines, I think it's really important for me, and I'm not sure if we'll go in here, but it's fascinating for me. I'm really happy with Karen and I that we decided to, because we've known each other for 20 years now. We've been dating for 20 years, and one of the key things that looking back, I mean, you can always only look things retrospectively, right? One of the things that I think was really important for us was we spent some time together without kids. And I think we had a good 6 years married after we got married to just be with ourselves. We traveled to Australia and just spent some time before kids. And I think because once kids, you know this, and I'm sure all the listeners on this, once you become a dad, your life gets flipped upside down. Everything changes, and you hear it is so cliche, but it's the absolute truth. And I'm really happy for that time that I actually had with my wife, with Karen, and not that I don't love being a dad. I love being a dad. I love being a father, but it's just different.
I completely agree. It's one of those things I tell people, I'm in practice. I'm a practicing chiropractor, and I see a lot of clients and specialize in pediatrics. So I see a lot of pregnant moms and dads coming in, and big one is if they're first time gonna be dads, it's sort of like, man, it's nothing anyone can tell you can prepare you. As everything you've heard, throw it out the window, because everybody's experience is different, and it is huge. And I think it's a really important thing, which is why I created this podcast, is because there's a lot of focus on the mom, and rightfully so, of course. Moms go through a lot more than we do, giving birth and all the rest of it. But I think in our what I call dadhood, there's a big gap there, and I hope that I can fill some of that gap by creating this podcast and getting the word out and interviewing great people like yourself to help dads along that journey.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenging things with as a father, I think, if you don't have the right mindset going into having kids, it could be really debilitating, and it could really ruin relationships. I was a bit older, so I was a bit more mature. Like, I can say mature at 33, right? But I remember just being a dad. I mean, it really challenged us, like, physically, emotionally, and through that first year was a really, really tough year. Like, I didn't have a great time, let me just tell you. And this is just from my perspective, and let alone my wife. But I think what's challenging is that it's all about the kid, it's all about the child. And oftentimes, when you are family focused or kids focused, sometimes, not to say that the mom doesn't get left out, but the dad is often left out because all the focus is on that child in the first year or two. And if you're not mentally prepared for that, you're going to feel like, I think some dads feel like they're distant and they're being pulled away. And it has nothing to do with you per se, or what you've done or anything. It's just that things have changed, focus changes, and you just got to, it doesn't happen to everybody. I'm not suggesting it happens to everybody. For me, I just remember just feeling that, the child needs mom, and they are focused on the mom. I really didn't connect with my daughter Kaya. I connected with her, but it really didn't connect with her almost until about her, year and a half, 2 years, when my wife was pregnant with the second one, because she had to focus on Christian. And so therefore, Kaya then started to focus on, having a bit more relationship with me. I hope that makes sense. And, I think that's one of the I think I see that as being a challenge as a dad.
I totally agree, and I think in the infancy of this podcast, we're stepping on eggshells here, thinking about looking at it's all about mom, it's all about baby, and talking about the experiences for ourselves. But I really do think that this is the experience for a lot of dads. It's not just me and you. Most of the dads I've talked to have had some sequence of that happening to some degree.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm just pointing it out. It's just to make it okay, right? This is to say, like, it's okay to know that that's happening, and that someone else is experiencing, and I just want to point that out. And it's not to negate that, because I mean, my wife would have gone through a different scenario, like different situations, and everybody goes through it differently, and no one's experience is exactly the same. And that's why no one, you started saying, at the beginning, saying, you can't really give advice to anybody, because really nothing can prepare you, no matter how much you read, no matter how much you're prepared for, it's still going to hit you hard. And some people, have the perfect child, in a sense, quote unquote, right? But some people just have difficulty, and there's no right or wrong. It is the challenge of human beings, and I think it's okay in accepting that. I'm just saying that you just need to be mentally prepared for it, and be ready for it.
Absolutely. I think, I guess from my own perspective, coming from a very health-oriented background, being a wellness chiropractor and really focusing on things like diet and exercise and healthy mindset and all the rest of it, that I just assumed, my kid is going to be perfect because I do those things. And man, that's not the case.
Yep. When you have strong expectations, it's going to challenge you right away.
Expectations, that's a great sort of idea to really focus on, because you set high expectations, and you're gonna be shot down sometimes. Absolutely. So I want to give listeners an idea that this show is dedicated to dads who really want more, dads who have fallen asleep or become unconscious about their own selves and have lost who they are as men, as dads, as lovers, as people. And there's 5 main categories that I feel need to be addressed as far as that's concerned. And those 5 are what I call the 5 Ps. So the first one is purpose. And when I say purpose, I mean the reason why you're here and what you want to leave behind. Some people call it your legacy. The second is power. It's reaching optimal health and taking control of your life. Parenting, of course, is part of it, which is being the best version of yourself for your kids and your partners. Providing, which is taking care of your family and being a role model for your kids. And passion in your relationships and in your life. And let's face it, at least for part of some of our child's for at least 5 minutes at some point, our kid looks at us as a superhero. At least I hope so. At least for
That's the story we tell ourselves.
That's
anyways.
right. At least for 5 minutes. I tell Rory, my kid, all the time, Daddy's the strongest man in the world. Daddy's the smartest man in the world. I'm totally grooming her to understand that. So, which of those 5 P's, purpose, power, parenting, providing, and passion, do you feel like you've had a big struggle with, whether it be now or in the past, and something you've overcome?
All 5. Just to be very, very clear. I struggle with all 5. I think, and I want to start by saying, like, I think when you interview more and more people on this topic, I think you'll start to recognize that everybody's going to have different struggles. And I think that's the key, right? That we all have to struggle. That struggle is part of life. Struggle is part of, what makes us as men or women listening to this podcast. I think that's the key. For me, I'm going to surprise most people who actually know me and heard me before. The 2 things that kind of keep on coming up to me is purpose and passion. Out of those 5, if I had to pick 2, and which is what you don't expect, because we had this pre-show conversation and you said, like, you would imagine that purpose is a big, strong thing for me. I'm like, but that's where I feel the weakest. And it's kind of weird to say that. And not to say that I don't have a purpose or passion, but I think my purpose and passion is something that I'm constantly striving for. And I'm constantly looking at and refining and trying to figure out what it is. So that's why I feel like that is where I struggle the most with, is because it's something that I'm always looking to grow. The problem with passion and purpose, and maybe that's what drives me so hard to focus on that, and this is what I teach about people, is that I think one key thing about passion is that it's something you got to struggle through. It's passion. Most people think it's like, oh, it's all about love and passion, but to me, finding the passion in what you do is to recognize that passion. If you look at the passion of Christ, right? From the Christianity point of view, he was the suffering of Christ, right? So it's from there's nothing about religious in here, but just thinking about the word passion, we just take the context of passion as being something, as being, loving and it's something that you do what you love. It's not true. Passion is something that you're willing to do, the thing that you're willing to do, and suffer through it. That's passion. Something, if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing a work that you love to do, but you got to go through these ups and downs that you got to get through, but you're willing to do it because you have passion for it. Passion for your partner, for your wife. The passion is that you, no matter how much hurt that you're getting in terms of the relationship that you're having and the breakdowns in communication, you're willing to suffer through it. That's passion. That's what I want to see passion as. Purpose is finding, it is about legacy to me. Purpose of life is people are always searching for the purpose of life. And I think it's a never ending search for purpose. I find that there's not many people that actually just gets to find the purpose. And I teach this a lot. Is one of the things I learned in my life is people think that they need to find their purpose and they're constantly searching for the purpose. And I can tell you right now is that you may never find it. I know that might be a shock to a lot of people, but I've got to say, to me, is that sometimes you never find your purpose, and that you got to be okay with that. Because sometimes I attribute it almost like if you're driving a boat. If you're driving a boat and you have these, and you leave a wake behind you, right? If you look back in the lake or if you're in the middle of the ocean, and you're driving somewhere, and hopefully you actually have a direction. The key, though, when you look back once in a while, is that you see this wake. And sometimes, if you're in a lake somewhere, you can see the wake and see the impact that you make, which is on the shorelines, right? Yep. But what if you're in the ocean? What if you're in the ocean and you're nowhere close to shore, and you're leaving a wake behind, and by the time by the time it actually gets to shore, you can't even see it anymore? I think that's like purpose. Sometimes you don't even know what your purpose is. You don't know the impact that you're going to make. It might be 1 generation, it might be 2 or 3 generations that you may never get to experience because you're already gone. That's legacy, though. That's what I believe legacy is about. Legacy is about leaving something behind because you've done the best you can as a human being to leave something behind so that the world is better. But the problem is that you just got to accept the fact that sometimes the legacy that you leave behind, you may never see. You might be passed on, but you never see it.
I think that's brilliant. That's helped me out. Thanks, Laurence. Because I've always struggled with that. And I think a big one for me is, we've done a lot of personal growth and development courses and things like that. With Landmark, and you hear somebody get up and they speak. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of people will find their purpose or their passion through some type of really traumatic event that happens to them. Some type of dramatic, life-altering situation. And I've just grown up pretty good. I actually haven't had one of those to have this big awakening moment to create this amazing life change or what, that thing that drives me or helps me through a situation. I've been pretty happy my whole life. I've been pretty healthy my whole life. I haven't had, anyone tragically die or anything like that. And I think if I'm right, are you very similar in your life? Then are you laughing?
Scott, I'm laughing because we had this same conversation. I don't know if you remember, but I remember exactly where we were. We had this conversation, I would say, when 2016. So it was about 15, 16 years ago. We were in Boston, Massachusetts. We were at the Jim Sigafus and a Dig Santo event.
Yep.
Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
And it was just like stuff was just coming up for people. It was just like, oh my God, tears and emotions. And I remember going through it's about very emotional and But I remember coming out of that event at the end, I'm going, I don't understand. Not that I understand. I can't have empathy for it, but I've never gone through anything like that, myself personally. And we talked about that discussion. Like, wow, I lived a pretty good life, raised in a middle class family, and nothing really has tragically happened to my life. I do remember this conversation about 15, 16 years ago.
That's hilarious. I mean, not to say I haven't had struggles, and I'd probably say the biggest struggle of my life has been having a kid. Right, which is like as I was creating this podcast and thinking about what I was going to do, I've been talking to people and telling people, no way in the world am I ever going to win Father of the Year. That's just not me, right? I haven't created this podcast to go, hey, look how great a dad I am. What I've done is because I've struggled so much with it, I thought, you know what? Talking to other people, lots of dads are struggling with this. Let's get this out there and start talking about it, because I think that's really important for dads to have a bit of a hub to go to discuss and to just share their wins and their struggles and everything else.
Well, one of the key things I think people, from conversations with so many people, being a chiropractor in the past and also just, spending lots of times with families and just talking on podcasts and interviewing a whole bunch of people, one of the key things I think we all need to remember is that, just because someone might have, and I'm not trying to put, struggles is relative. What I mean by that is someone could have gone through the hardest things that they ever gone through. Maybe, someone died in their family from cancer, or maybe I've met a lot of people, who had been abused as a child, for example, to things that you would not even comprehend. Like I literally know people that have gone through hell. And then there's people, what we talked about ourselves, who've never gone through anything quote unquote traumatic or really seriously drama, to privileged kids who grow up with nothing, no struggle at all, not even watching their parents struggle. I think that broad spectrum is human life. However, I would say though, no matter if you're listening to either end of the spectrum, please understand that your struggle, even as a privileged child or whatever, you still had struggle in your own mind. That same emotion. I'm not saying that it's comparable, and when we put into relative terms, that's when we go, oh, well, our life wasn't that bad. But you know what? Don't forget though, even though it wasn't as bad compared to someone else, you can always compare to someone, right? The problem is that it still affected you. It still affected you emotionally, and you felt it. And the story you told yourself can be affecting, your life right now, and whether or not you are choosing to live the best version of yourself right now. I think that's really key, though. I think it's important for people to look at that, and that your small adversity, compared to like someone else, a friend of yours who had gone through, abuse or cancer or whatever, may compared to that is not bad, but you still have to suffer through it, like in your own mind, because that was the reality you had to live through as a child. And so I think I think all I'm saying is that no matter what we went through, it was important to us at that time, the anger, the frustrations, or the adversity that you had that was important to you at that time, and how you dealt with it. You only were able to deal with it at that struggle. And the thing as a parent, as a father, it's the same thing. Like your child may not be as bad as someone else's child who's got leukemia or whatever. However, it doesn't mean that you weren't suffering. So I think it's important to recognize that, the suffering that we feel compared to others may not be as bad. However, it's still a struggle, because that's the only relative term, subjective measurement that you actually have. So I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Think about the lesson we try and teach our kids. Don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, how easy
Exactly.
is that? It's true. Like, struggle is relative. And so people who haven't had those big things, the quote unquote smaller things, are just as much of a, like, the physiology is the same inside the
Yes,
body,
exactly.
how the body handles it. It's the same no matter what. So, yeah, I think that's
Stress is stress, right? Stress is stress, right?
exactly
And so
right.
your body's going to interpret the stress in your head because it's all about perception and belief. So your body's going to pump up the same amount of cortisol in your body, and the reaction is the similar amount. It doesn't matter what that stress is; it's still stress.
And yeah, I mean, us as chiropractors, et cetera, we understand that idea of how stress influences the body. And the key to it is not the stress, it's how you handle it.
That's right. That's right.
So which of those 5 Ps, I'll review them again: purpose, power, parenting, providing, and passion, do you feel like you have a superpower with? Like, which one of those is your superpower, and you'd like to share a bit of wisdom for the dads listening?
That question actually I struggle with a lot. Even just I knew what you were going to ask, and here's why. I know I'm trying not to avoid the question, but I really don't find I have a superpower in any of these, and maybe that's just trying to be humble or be modest, but I don't, and maybe that's part of the person I am, is that I don't want to master any of this superpower. I mean, I have superpowers for sure, and because I think we all need to recognize that genius. But if I feel like I'm superpower in any of these, then I'm not going to strive for it. But if I had to choose one, I would think that at the moment, provide. Actually, you know what? Providing or power, I think, will be the one. I'm going to choose power for a second. I think the reason why I'm choosing power right now is because at 41, I'm probably the fittest I've ever been in my life.
Awesome. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird feeling to worked out all my life, but not really worked out. And realize what a workout really is until someone really shows you. And I think I really spent the last year and a half to put myself into it and realize, going, wow, like I'm actually, now I understand what fitness really is about. And so, so that I would have to choose that.
Feels good to be strong, doesn't it?
It feels good to be strong from a couple of perspectives. Number one, it feels good to be strong because the physicality and the exercise that I'm doing now is not only have helped me physically, but it actually has applied it into my business, in my life, in my thinking and my mindset. That is what the surprising outcome was, is that the ability that I can push myself in my physical realm has transformed that what I need to do in my business, from a dedication point of view, from a discipline point of view, from the habits I have to create, to shortening up the mentality to wake up, the ability to go and wake up in the morning, to go work out at 5:30 in the morning. Those things that all the lessons that come from that has been an absolute blessing for me for the last year.
And that wasn't a plug at all, saying wake up, hey? For the Wake Up Dad podcast?
Oh, yeah. No, that was unintentional.
Yeah. So I'll put on my doctor's hat for a minute there, and this is something that a lot of people do not realize, is that exercise is more for your brain than it is for your body. Mm-hmm. On a physiological level, it creates changes inside your brain that then allows you to be a better person. So, if you are a dad out there and you're thinking, oh, I should get into the gym because I got, this belly fat that's come around because I haven't taken care of myself. Yes, absolutely. That's a really important part. But getting out and getting active is so much more for your brain than it is for your body. So it will help you in all aspects, just like Laurence just talked about. So what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned as a dad?
Biggest lessons I've learned with a dad. I just learned the biggest lesson I learned from being a dad is that no matter what I do and no matter how great a parent I'm going to be, I'm going to screw my kids up. I have no proof of this yet, but it's already starting to show. I think we all strive to be the best dad we possibly can, or the best mom. I think we strive to be the best parent. And I really come to the realization that no matter what I do or how great I'm going to become as a father, or as a mother, as a parent, as a friend to them, or whatever, I'm going to screw them up somehow. And I know that sounds strange, But I think that's the truth. You can protect them, but then you can screw them over with their emotions as they feel protected, and all of a sudden something bad happens to them. They're going to go, oh crap, I can't deal with the adversities. Or if you let them deal with adversity, then they don't feel loved. Like it's like a DeMartini thing, right? You're never going to get us right, and you just got to be okay with it. And you just got to do the best you can with what you got. Podcasts like this is going to help you navigate through those challenges. But you just got, I think it's just having the acceptance that the best you can, the best you got with the tools you got, the resources you got, is what you got. And you do the best you can at that time. And, 10 years later, 20 years later, looking back, you're going to feel like, oh, I messed up somewhere. I think that's the key, to not beat yourself up. That no matter what you do, and if you've done this or done A or B or C, or X, Y, or Z, you might have thought that things would have been different, but then some other challenge would have come up. So I think oftentimes we, reflect back on our parenthood, and, did our dads or our grandparents do something right or wrong? Or, at the end of the day, like I have to look back and just kind of go, you know what, they did the best they could with the circumstances that they were given.
Absolutely. I think that's such a vital lesson. And I think another one is, making sure that sometimes you feel okay that you're wrong, like to apologize to your kids. Like sometimes I felt it. It's like, oh, well, I'm the parent, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, no, wait a minute. You know what? I was wrong. And I'll sit down and apologize to Rory and tell her why I did those things, because we're not perfect by any stretch of imagination, nowhere near perfect. So, I lose it. But then I really try and have a conscious awareness to go back and to talk about that situation and to, make sure that she understands where I'm coming from as well.
Your child, like one of the things that I realized that, sometimes when your kids say certain things and like say certain acronyms or say certain words or their behavior, he goes, where did you pick that up? Mm-hmm. Right? And then if you actually really spend some time and be self-aware, you realize they picked up from you. They're like a sponge, and they watch every mannerism. I'm talking facial expressions, how you act in certain situations, what you say, the words that you use. They are a mini you, like a mini version of you and your wife or your partners, whoever it is. They're a mini version of you. And that was a big lesson for me to realize, like, oh man, this is what I mean. Like you start to really want to see yourself, your dark sides of yourself. It's like you just watch your kids, because they're picking up everything that you're doing, and they're basically mimicking, behaving. And I think if you're aware of that, then you will go out of your way to fix your, fix is the wrong word, but to look at yourself in the mirror and say, how can I improve? And I think what you just said there, apologizing, I've done that, many times. And it's the best thing in the world. I think it's a great, great lesson for kids to know that we fail too. We make mistakes too. And we are big enough to admit, because that's what we want our children to do, to big enough to admit that we were wrong. And for them to be able to see that humility, and to not think of us as that superhero, to recognize that we are human beings and we make mistakes too, I think it's a huge lesson for them. And I hope that will translate in their life to know that they can also make mistakes, because making mistakes, let's face it, will actually make them a better person.
Oh, there's no way you cannot make mistakes, and it's about owning up to them, really, and just moving forward from that. For some reason,
that's right.
It's an awful show in some ways. Have you ever seen the show Californication?
No, I know who's in it.
David Duchovny. I've seen some episodes in
X-Files,
and he's a dad in it. And man, he's a screwed up dude. But that for some reason that just came to mind. Is he's always willing to apologize to his daughter about being such a dick, basically. So if you had 2 minutes in front of a room with 1,000 dads in the audience, what would be the biggest or the greatest wake up dad message you could give them in 2 minutes or less?
So if my message to them is one is be patient. Be patient with yourself. I think that we need to recognize that we can love our kids. They could be your purpose, and they could be your passion. They could be what you live for. That's what you say. But so have the self-evaluation to recognize that, is that the truth? And if it's the truth, then look at, recognizing, are you behaving that way? One of the things I got my lesson recently, just a month ago, was recognizing, to do the small things. When I'm with them, am I actually fully paying attention, or I'm actually on my phone? I'll just send this one message, or I just need to do this one Facebook post, but is that really connecting? And it's not about time with your kids. It's about, are you really connecting with the time that you got? And I struggle through this. I will raise my hand and fully admit that that's the struggle that I have. But it's not to beat yourself up about it. It's to recognize it. I think self-awareness is really important, to be aware that what you're doing and then correcting it accordingly based on that self-awareness. What are you going to do about it? So I think that's the lesson I would teach to people, was to be patient with the growth, that this is a long game, not a short game. There's no tactics, there's no strategies, there's just being you. And when you be you, but I think, so what I want to get to is, number one is love yourself. Like, if you can't love yourself, then you can't lead by example. And that's the most important lesson I think that I would want to make sure people know, is that you need to be proud of yourself. Be proud of what you do in everything, what you talked about, the 5 Ps. That's how you can't change. Listen, there's so many different influences that your child's going to go through, from friends and their colleagues, and, the influence of society and social media. The one thing that you can influence is you. And you just got to lead by example and be the model for them. And if you can, you just hope for the best, that they follow you. And I think that's pretty much it. Like, you can only control the things you can control, and the most thing you can, the one priority you can't control is you, and how you behave, how you see things, how you see the world, and basically adapt accordingly.
I think that's a brilliant message, because in the end, we can't even control our kids. We think we can to a certain degree when they're really young, but we still can't. But the only thing that we can truly control is ourselves, our own responses to life and how we're dealing with them, and teach our kids well and hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what, just before we're going to start wrapping up here now, amazing how fast the time goes. What app or book or audiobook or gadget, as dads, we love gadgets or games or exercise routines or authors or whatever it is. What are you just loving at the moment?
Oh, loving at the moment. That's a loaded question, man. We could do another podcast just on this. This is bad. Okay, so book. Great book that I just read recently, that I met the author at an event, is Ryan Holiday. He wrote a book called Ego is the Enemy. And that's a great book. He wrote a previous book called The Obstacle is the Way on Stoicism. I thought that was a fantastic book. It's just something that I can resonate with. I think dads, from an app, my favorite app that I use the most is podcasts. The podcast app. I don't listen to my own podcast, but I listen to a lot of different types of people's podcasts. And I think, you have free information that's, available to you. It's way better than radio. In terms of your ability to absorb information. I listen to 2 times speed. If you can listen to me 2 times speed, good luck. But that's what I do. I listen to 2 times speed so I can get a half an hour podcast in 15 minutes. I get through quite a bit. Audiobooks is fantastic. It's a great way. I don't read very well not in terms of fast. I'm a slow reader, so therefore audiobooks are really great for me, because I can get through a book really quickly. So those are the types of things that I would that I enjoy.
So the Ryan Holiday book, did you actually read it, or was it an audiobook?
Audiobook.
Yeah,
I had the book. He gave me the book, but
right.
I bought the audiobook just because I didn't want to read it.
I know you're a big audiobook fan. So am I. Great tip. Listen to that podcast 2 times. I love it. I never really thought of that.
Oh,
I can't wait.
Man, it's that's why I speak so fast, I think, because I absorb information so fast that I have to speak so fast because I feel like I have to keep up,
So if I'm going to give you a little plug now, although you didn't plug yourself, I think back to your superpowers. I'm really excited to know that you've really taken control of the power. I think in the providing part, in particular in the entrepreneurial world, you've just done some amazing things over the last few years, and I really look up to you for that. So I'm just going to give you a little plug there. If people are interested in learning how to grow their own business or brand or that type of scenario, then Laurence is definitely a guy to have a chat with. So how can people get in touch with you? Maybe through your podcast would be the best way?
Yeah, I think it depends on, when you're listening, depends on what type of person you are. I think if you are a chiropractor or a practitioner, I would suggest you go to driveyourpractice.com. That's my sort of business for, I do a lot of mentorship in terms of helping people business and in the practice world. If you like what we spoke about in this podcast, I think the best podcast for you is the Inside the Champion's Mind. I rebranded with my wife. My wife is on it now, Karen, and we've been doing it for 4 years now, and she just joined the show 2 episodes ago. We're on episode number 102, and so just go to Inside the Champion's Mind. That's actually hosted at the Wellness Couch. TheWellnessCouch.com is where I have all my podcasts. There's 20 different shows there, but 2 of the shows that I do is Inside Champion's Mind and also the Wellness Guides, which has been running for 5 years. So that's, if you want to reach out to me, just look me for on Facebook. I don't have a Facebook page. It's just me. It's Laurence Tham, and yeah, I'm sure you'll find me. So if you look it up, and you can find me there.
That's absolutely amazing. You introduced Karen to the podcast. I haven't listened to one yet with the new co-host, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, she's dominating, and I might lose a job.
Excellent stuff. All right, thanks again to Dr. Laurence Tham for that awesome discussion. Guys, go to the website, www.thewakeupdadshow.com. Go to iTunes, give us a rating so we can reach more people. And if you want to get in touch with me, just give me an email at drscott@thewakeupdadshow.com. Thanks again, Laurence.
Do you want to know more about the Wake Up Dad movement? Go to www.thewakeupdadshow.com to download any and all past issues of the show, claim your free gift, or to directly ask Dr. Scott any questions you have. Continue the conversation on the Facebook group Wake Up Dad. Share this podcast with other dads on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure to subscribe to the show and give us a rating so we can reach more dads. And dads, one last thing. Wake up!